There is a specific person in your circle who harbors feelings for you that go far deeper than you suspect. This individual carries you in their mind, dwelling on you with a frequency they would never admit to your face. This isn't a simple crush or a fleeting spark of interest. It is a slow-burning affection that has matured in silence. A love that has mastered the art of existing without recognition. You aren't just a thought to them. You are a pause button on their busy life. They are reshaping their future plans because you have fundamentally altered their perspective. They don't just recall your talks. They study them, valuing every syllable you've uttered as if it were currency. They search for meaning in your smallest gestures, your tone, and even your silence. And when you are away, there is a hollow space in their emotional landscape that remains unfilled. But here is where it gets intense. They are yearning for something distinct. They aren't chasing validation or a moment of your time. They want something real, something substantial, something that feels terrifyingly vulnerable to speak into existence. They're hoping for permission. Hey everyone, welcome to Cyclins. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell icon, and select all, because every video can change your mindset. Let's go deeper. They fell in love slowly, and then all at once. Not in a dramatic way. Not in a way that could be traced back to a single moment. This person didn't wake up one day and suddenly decide they loved you. It happened incrementally, quietly, invisibly. At first, you were simply interesting. Then you were comforting. Then you became familiar in a way that felt safe. And then, without warning, you became important. Not convenient, not entertaining, important. They noticed how they felt calmer around you. How conversations with you felt different, less forced, more honest. They noticed that they trusted you instinctively, that your presence lowered their guard instead of raising it. They cared about your mood, your energy, your silence. They became attuned to you in a way that surprised even them. Carl Jung once said, "Where love rules, there is no will to power." And that is exactly what makes this feeling so real. They are not trying to control you. They are not trying to possess you. They are not trying to win anything. They simply want to be near you, understood by you, emotionally aligned with you. Love crept in quietly, so quietly that by the time they realized it, it was already rooted. And once it rooted itself, it didn't leave, not even when they tried to be logical. Not even when they told themselves to slow down. Not even when circumstances made it inconvenient. And here is where most people misunderstand what's happening. Why haven't they told you yet? Their silence is not indifference. Their restraint is not uncertainty. Their distance is not a lack of feeling. It is fear mixed with respect. A dangerous combination because it looks like nothing from the outside. But inside, it is everything. They are afraid of losing what already exists. Afraid of changing the dynamic in a way that cannot be undone. Afraid of being vulnerable with someone who matters too much. Afraid of discovering that the timing isn't right, even if the feeling is. They care about you enough to risk nothing, rather than risk everything. That doesn't mean they don't want more. It means they want it too deeply. Carl Jung said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." And loving you has forced them closer to that edge. Because to admit how they feel would mean standing fully in their truth, without armor, without guarantees. What they are hoping for but rarely say is not a dramatic confession, not a perfect moment, not a guarantee of forever. They are hoping for a sign, something small but unmistakable, something that tells them, "I feel it too." You're not imagining this. You wouldn't be foolish for hoping. They are watching how you look at them when you think they aren't paying attention, how you respond when they open up, even slightly, how you behave when they pull back, how you treat them when no one else is watching. They are listening for permission in your tone, reading meaning in your consistency, searching for safety in your presence. They imagine a life with you more than you know. Not fantasy, not escape, not idealized romance. They imagine ordinary mornings, shared routines, conversations that stretch late into the night, silence that feels comfortable instead of awkward. Being emotionally safe with someone who understands them, growing together instead of performing for each other. Carl Jung wrote, "Love is a force of destiny whose power reaches from heaven to hell." And this is the kind of love that doesn't shout. It pulls, it anchors, it transforms quietly. They imagine real life with you, not perfection, but partnership. And that is how you know this feeling is serious. If you have ever felt a pull toward them you can't explain, a sense of familiarity that feels almost timeless, emotional tension without conflict, comfort mixed with anticipation, moments where silence says more than words. That is not coincidence. That is mutual awareness without mutual permission. Both of you feel something. Both of you sense the depth, but neither of you wants to be the one who breaks the fragile balance. And yet they notice when you pull away, even when they act unaffected. They notice when you become distant, quieter, distracted. It unsettles them. Not because they feel entitled to you, but because your presence has become emotional grounding for them. Sometimes they wait. Sometimes they retreat. Sometimes they overthink. And internally they wonder, did I do something wrong? Did I imagine the connection? Am I hoping for something that isn't there? Your energy matters more to them than they let on. What's stopping the next step is rarely a lack of love. It's usually timing, past wounds, and fear of misreading you. They feel the moment has to be right, emotionally, situationally, even spiritually. They've been hurt before, especially when they cared deeply. And they learned caution the hard way. And there is one fear that sits beneath all the others. They are afraid you don't see them the same way. Not just afraid of rejection, but afraid that you see them as temporary, that you value them, but not romantically, that you enjoy the connection, but not the commitment, that you would move on more easily than they would. Carl Jung said, "Nothing has a stronger influence psychologically on their environment than the unlived life of the parent." In the same way, nothing weighs heavier on the heart than a love that remains unspoken. So they protect themselves by staying quiet, even as the feeling grows heavier. There were moments when they almost told you, a look that lingered too long, a conversation that went too deep, a silence that stretched just enough to become dangerous. They pulled back at the last second, not because the feeling wasn't real, but because it was. And this is where everything stands right now. A connection that is alive, aware, and waiting. Not fading, not gone. Waiting. They don't say it out loud, but the waiting has weight. It lives in the background of their days, tucked behind routines and responsibilities, surfacing in quiet moments when distraction fades. Waiting does not feel passive to them. It feels active, like holding a breath without knowing when it's safe to exhale. This person has learned how to look composed while carrying unanswered questions. They've learned how to smile through uncertainty, how to show up without revealing how much is at stake emotionally. On the surface, they seem steady internally. They are measuring everything, not to manipulate, but to understand. They are trying to read the emotional weather between you, trying to sense whether the ground is stable enough to step forward. What makes this even more complex is that they don't want to rush you. They don't want to corner you with emotion or burden you with expectations. Their feelings didn't arrive as an impulse, so they don't want to express them impulsively. They believe that if this is real, it deserves patience. And so, they wait in a way that looks like restraint, but feels like devotion. They replay moments not because they are stuck in the past, but because those moments are proof that the connection exists. A shared laugh that lingered longer than expected. A conversation that drifted into vulnerable territory without effort. a moment of silence that felt intimate rather than awkward. These experiences didn't fade for them. They settled. They became reference points, anchors. And when you are not around, they notice the contrast. The absence is not dramatic, but it is noticeable. The room feels quieter. Conversations feel flatter. The day moves, but something essential feels missing. They don't panic about this. They observe it. And that observation confirms what they already know but haven't said. There is a part of them that wonders if you feel this too, but another part that is terrified of assuming, because assuming wrong would mean reinterpreting everything. It would mean realizing that what felt meaningful to them might have been ordinary to you. That fear alone is enough to keep their heart guarded. So they watch how you respond when they open up emotionally, even just a little. Do you lean in or change the subject? Do you meet their honesty with warmth or neutrality? Do you notice when they pull back, or does it go unnoticed? These small signals matter more to them than grand gestures ever could. They are not looking for reassurance through words. They are looking for alignment through behavior. When they imagine the future, it is not a fantasy disconnected from reality. It is grounded. They imagine navigating stress together. They imagine disagreement without fear. They imagine being emotionally understood, not just emotionally desired. They imagine someone choosing them not because it is easy, but because it feels right. That kind of imagining doesn't come from infatuation. It comes from emotional safety. And here is something important to understand. Their hesitation is not about doubting their feelings. It is about honoring them. They believe that something this deep should not be thrown into uncertainty lightly. They don't want to be another emotional experience you move through and leave behind. They want to be something that builds. So instead of confessing, they create space. They give you room to choose, room to notice, room to feel without pressure. And sometimes in doing so, they risk being misunderstood as distant or detached. But what they are really doing is holding the door open without pushing you through it. When you pull away, even subtly, it affects them more than they show. They don't react impulsively. They internalize it. They question themselves. They replay recent interactions. They wonder if they misstepped or revealed too much. They don't confront you because they don't want to create tension where none was intended. But when you lean in, even gently, it steadies them. A consistent message, a thoughtful response, a moment of genuine presence. These things ground them. They don't need intensity. They need continuity. What they fear most is not rejection. It is ambiguity without resolution. Being emotionally connected, but never chosen. Being close enough to feel, but never close enough to belong. That kind of closeness without commitment is far more painful to them than a clear answer ever would be. And yet they continue to stay present because walking away would mean denying something real, and they are not built to deny what they know is true inside them. There were moments when they almost spoke, when the words sat right at the edge of their voice, when the timing felt almost right. And then something held them back. Not cowardice, awareness. They sensed that saying it too soon might change everything before you were ready to receive it. So they chose silence over pressure and hope over force. If nothing changes, they know this connection will not simply disappear. It will evolve either into distance that protects them from disappointment or into honesty that demands courage from both sides. They are aware of this. They are not naive. They understand that love left unspoken does not stay neutral forever. That is why their presence has become more intentional. They show up when it matters. They listen deeply. They offer emotional consistency. They are not trying to impress you. They are trying to be real with you, to show you who they are without overwhelming you. What they need from you is not a confession, not a dramatic declaration. What they need is clarity through consistency, to feel that they are not imagining the connection alone. to feel that their emotional investment is not misplaced. When you acknowledge them fully, when you engage without distraction, when you allow space for emotional depth instead of avoiding it, these moments speak louder than any words ever could. And if you feel this too, even if you are unsure what it means yet, your presence matters. Your honesty matters. Even soft honesty, especially soft honesty. Because sometimes love does not begin with certainty. Sometimes it begins with recognition. Two people sensing something real and choosing not to ignore it. This connection does not need urgency. It needs courage. Not the kind that rushes forward, but the kind that stays open, that allows truth to surface naturally instead of being forced into the light. They are not waiting for perfection. They are waiting for permission. Permission to believe that what they feel is shared. Permission to step forward without fear of stepping alone. And deep down, you already know whether this is real. Not because of what they have said, but because of how it feels when you think of them. Because of how their absence registers. Because of how their presence shifts something inside you that doesn't shift easily. This is not coincidence. This is not imagination. This is emotional truth waiting to be acknowledged. And the story is still unfolding. They are more aware than you think. Aware of the tension. Aware of the pauses. Aware of the moments when something almost happens but doesn't. They sense the unspoken questions between you. The ones neither of you want to ask, because asking would mean crossing a line that can't be uncrossed. What they feel now is not confusion. It's anticipation, mixed with restraint. They are standing at the edge of something meaningful, and they know it. And because they know it, they are careful. They notice patterns. How you show up when you feel safe. How you withdraw when something touches a deeper part of you. They don't judge this. They recognize it. They understand it because they feel the same hesitation within themselves. That's part of what makes the connection feel familiar. You mirror each other more than you realize. There are moments when they want to pull away entirely, not because they've stopped caring, but because caring without clarity can be exhausting. They tell themselves that distance might help them regain emotional balance, that it might quiet the hope, but it never lasts. Because detachment would require them to deny what they feel, and they are not good at pretending with themselves. So they return, not dramatically, not desperately, quietly, consistently. They show up again as if to say, I'm still here. I'm still choosing this, even if I don't fully understand where it's going yet. They don't need constant reassurance from you, but they do need honesty and energy. They can sense when you are emotionally present and when you are not. They can feel when you're distracted, guarded, or uncertain. And they don't take it personally at first. They try to understand. They give you space. They assume complexity rather than indifference. But over time, uncertainty weighs on them. Not because they are impatient, but because they are emotionally invested. And emotional investment without direction slowly drains even the most grounded person. There is a quiet longing beneath everything they do with you. Not a needy longing, a hopeful one. The kind that imagines possibility without demanding it. The kind that wonders what it would be like to stop holding back, to be fully seen and fully chosen at the same time. They imagine what it would feel like to speak freely around you, to express affection without filtering it, to share fears without minimizing them, to lean into the connection instead of measuring it. This imagining doesn't come from fantasy. It comes from emotional readiness. But readiness alone isn't enough. They need mutual readiness. They need to feel that you're standing in the same emotional space, even if you haven't named it yet. There is something else they don't say, even to themselves at first. Loving you has changed them. It has softened parts of them that were once guarded. It has made them more reflective, more honest about what they want, and what they will no longer settle for. This connection has recalibrated their emotional compass, and that's why they don't want to misstep. They know that once spoken, The truth cannot be taken back, and they don't want to be careless with something that matters this much. So they choose awareness over impulse, presence over pressure, depth over speed. They notice how you react when others enter the picture, whether you become quieter or more distant, whether something shifts in your tone. These subtle changes do not go unnoticed. They don't jump to conclusions, but they do register them emotionally. They file them away, trying to understand what they mean. At times, they wonder if the connection feels heavier to them than it does to you. That thought alone can make them retreat inward. It makes them question whether they should continue holding space for something that may never be acknowledged. But then you do something small, something unintentional, something genuine, and the doubt loosens its grip. It might be the way you listen, the way you remember something they said weeks ago, the way your energy softens when you're around them. These moments reassure them more than any declaration ever could. They don't want to rush you into clarity before you're ready, but they also can't stay suspended indefinitely. At some point, the emotional tension will ask to be resolved. Not aggressively, naturally. They are aware that love left unexpressed doesn't stay neutral. It either deepens into mutual understanding or slowly transforms into distance as a form of self-protection. And they are watching carefully which direction this is moving. They don't expect you to have all the answers. They don't expect certainty. They expect sincerity. If you feel something too, even if you're unsure how to name it, your willingness to stay emotionally open matters. Your consistency matters. Your honesty, even when it's quiet, matters. They don't need you to promise anything. They need to feel that they are not alone in sensing the depth of this connection. Because what they are holding is not casual. It's not temporary. It's not something they stumbled into. It's something that grew with intention, awareness, and care. They are not hoping for fantasy. They are hoping for alignment. For a moment, when the unspoken becomes safe enough to speak. When the question doesn't feel like a risk, but like a step. And until that moment arrives, they remain present. They remain steady. They remain emotionally available without demanding reciprocity. That choice alone says more than words ever could. If you're wondering what to do next, you don't need to force clarity. You don't need to push yourself into a decision before you're ready. But you also don't need to dismiss what your intuition recognizes. Sometimes the most meaningful relationships don't begin with certainty. They begin with awareness. Two people feeling something real and choosing not to run from it. This connection is not fragile because it is weak. It is fragile because it is honest. And honesty, when it matters, requires care. They are still here, still hoping, still waiting. Not passively, but intentionally. Waiting for the moment when holding back no longer feels safer than stepping forward. And the story is still open. At some point, waiting changes shape. It stops feeling like patience and starts feeling like a quiet question that repeats itself in the background of their mind. Not loudly, not urgently, just consistently. And that question is simple but heavy. Is this moving towards something, or am I holding space alone? They don't ask you this out loud because they don't want to place responsibility on you before you're ready. They don't want to turn a connection that feels organic into something that feels pressured. So instead, they watch, they listen, they feel, and they let time reveal what words have not yet said. What's important to understand is that they are not emotionally idle during this time. They are actively choosing you again and again, even without guarantees. That choice costs them something internally. It requires restraint. It requires emotional discipline. It requires them to stay present without becoming attached to an outcome they cannot control. That is not weakness. That is emotional maturity. They are aware that love can easily turn into longing if it is not grounded in reality. And so, they check themselves often. They ask whether they are seeing you clearly, or idealizing the connection. They question their own motives. They try to separate what is real from what is hoped for. Not because they doubt the feeling, but because they respect it. There are days when they feel closer to you without anything actually happening. A shared look, a moment of understanding, an exchange that feels honest and unguarded. These days strengthen their resolve. They feel aligned, calm, certain, in a quiet way. And then there are days when distance creeps in. Not necessarily physical distance, but emotional subtlety. Responses feel shorter. Energy feels distracted. Presence feels divided. On those days, they retreat inward. They don't accuse. They don't demand. They simply feel the shift and absorb it. Those moments hurt more than they let on, not because they expect constant closeness, but because inconsistency creates doubt. And doubt is the one thing they struggle with most in this connection. Not doubt about you as a person, but doubt about whether they are misreading the depth of what exists between you. They wonder if they are standing in something meaningful, while you are standing in something casual. That thought alone makes them cautious. It makes them quieter. It makes them hold back the parts of themselves that want to lean in fully. Carl Jung once said, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to oneself." This is the loneliness they feel sometimes with you. Not absence, not isolation, but the quiet weight of not yet being able to speak what matters most. And still they stay. They stay because the connection feels honest, because when you are fully present, it feels grounding. Because there is a sense of mutual recognition that doesn't require explanation. Because something about you feels familiar in a way they can't rationalize. They are not looking for a spark. Sparks are easy. They burn fast and fade fast. What they feel with you is slower, deeper, more stable. And that is why it scares them. They know that once they step forward emotionally, there is no returning to neutrality. They won't be able to unfeel what they feel. They won't be able to pretend the connection was just friendship or coincidence. And they are not someone who enters emotional territory lightly. So they wait for signs that it is safe. Not safe from rejection, but safe from dismissal. Safe from being minimized. Safe from being told indirectly or directly that what they feel is too much. They notice how you handle emotional depth in general. Whether you lean away from vulnerability or sit with it. Whether you deflect seriousness with humor or allow moments to be what they are. Whether you respect emotional truth or avoid it. They are learning about you not just as someone they care for, but as someone they could trust with their heart. There is something else happening beneath the surface. This connection is teaching them about themselves, about their capacity for patience, about their need for emotional reciprocity, about what they are no longer willing to accept in love. They are realizing that they don't want half presence. They don't want emotional ambiguity forever. They don't want to be someone's maybe while holding someone as a priority in their heart. And this realization is slowly shaping their next move. That move does not have to be a confession. It might be a boundary. It might be a shift in how they show up. It might be a moment of quiet honesty. Or it might be distance, not as punishment, but as self-protection. They don't want that outcome. But they are becoming aware that staying silent forever would eventually cost them their emotional balance. Carl Jung said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." This reaction has already happened. Neither of you is unchanged by this connection. The only question left is whether the transformation will lead toward closeness or separation. They are not asking you to decide everything right now. They are not asking you to promise anything, but they are hoping for movement. Not forward necessarily, but toward clarity. Clarity can be gentle. It can be slow. It can come through presence rather than words, but it cannot be absent forever. If you feel this connection too, even if you are unsure what it means. Your willingness to acknowledge it matters. You don't need to label it. You don't need to define the future, but you do need to respect the depth that exists. They are watching how you handle that depth. Do you honor it or avoid it? Do you meet it with curiosity or keep it at arm's length? Do you allow it to breathe, or do you quietly hope it fades on its own? They are sensitive to these choices, even when they don't comment on them, and they adjust themselves accordingly. This is not about pressure. It's about alignment. They want to know whether they are walking toward you or walking beside you alone. And that knowing is getting closer. Not because time is running out, but because emotional truth eventually demands recognition. You can delay it, you can soften it, you can approach it slowly, but you cannot ignore it indefinitely without something changing. They are still open, still hopeful, still grounded, but they are also becoming more aware of their own needs. And that awareness is shaping the next chapter of this connection, whether spoken or not. The story is still unfolding, but it is approaching a moment where silence will either deepen into understanding or give way to distance. And both of you, whether you realize it yet or not, are already participating in that choice. There comes a moment when awareness becomes unavoidable. When both of you feel it, even if neither of you names it, the energy shifts slightly. The pauses last longer. The connection feels heavier, not in a bad way, but in a way that asks to be acknowledged. This is not pressure from the outside. It's pressure from truth. They feel it. You feel it. And yet, both of you are still careful. What they are carrying now is not just hope, but responsibility. Responsibility to themselves, to their emotional integrity, and to what this connection deserves. They know that love cannot remain suspended forever without asking for something in return. Not a promise, not certainty, just honesty. They are no longer wondering if they feel something. They know they do. The question has shifted. Now they are wondering whether this connection has room to grow, or whether it has reached the edge of what silence can hold. They don't want to force a moment that should arrive naturally, but they also don't want to disappear without understanding. So they begin to prepare themselves emotionally, not for rejection, but for truth, whatever form that truth takes. They rehearse conversations they may never have, not dramatic confessions, but simple statements, honest ones, the kind that don't demand an answer but offer clarity. And each time they imagine speaking, they feel both relief and fear. Relief because words change things. They are aware that once something is spoken, the connection will never return to what it was before. And at the same time, they are becoming more aware of themselves in your presence, of how much they soften, of how much they care about your emotional state, of how much your approval matters to them, even when they wish it didn't. These realizations don't make them weaker. They make them more honest about what's at stake. They begin to ask themselves difficult questions, not about you, but about them. Am I willing to stay if this never becomes more? Am I holding back parts of myself that deserve expression? Am I protecting the connection, or am I protecting myself from disappointment? These questions don't demand immediate answers, but they linger. They also begin to notice how you respond when emotional proximity increases. Whether you stay present or subtly retreat, whether you engage with depth or redirect toward neutrality. These responses matter now more than ever, because they help them understand what kind of emotional space they are actually in with you. They are not judging you. They are calibrating. If you lean in even gently, they feel steadier. If you remain emotionally distant, they begin to pull back, not to punish, but to preserve themselves. This is not a game. It's self-respect forming quietly. There is something they want you to know, even if they never say it directly. Loving you has not made their life chaotic. It has made it clearer, It has shown them what kind of connection they want, what kind of presence they value, what kind of emotional honesty they are capable of. And because of that, they cannot pretend indefinitely. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." This connection has brought unconscious feelings to the surface for both of you. And now awareness is asking for choice, not a rushed choice, a conscious one. They are not asking you to be ready before you are. They are asking you not to ignore what you already feel. Even if you are unsure what it means yet, even if you don't know where it leads, they don't need certainty. They need acknowledgement, because being emotionally seen matters more to them than being emotionally claimed. If you can meet them in truth, even gently, they can handle whatever comes next. What they cannot handle forever is being invisible to something that feels this real. They are also aware that love, when respected, does not demand urgency. It invites presence. And presence is something you either offer or withhold, often without realizing it. If you show up fully, if you allow emotional depth instead of deflecting it, if you treat the connection as something meaningful rather than convenient, they feel it immediately, and it changes everything. They become more relaxed, more open, more willing to take emotional risks. Because safety is not created by promises, it's created by consistency. If nothing changes, they will eventually make a choice. Not dramatically, quietly. They will either speak or they will step back, not out of anger, out of self-honoring. They don't want to walk away, but they are learning that staying without growth can slowly erode the very connection they are trying to protect. What they hope for is simple. Not perfection, not fantasy, not control. They hope for mutual courage. For a moment where both of you allow what's real to exist without hiding it. Sometimes that moment comes through conversation, sometimes through behavior, sometimes through a shift in how you show up for each other. There is no single correct way, but there is one wrong way. Pretending nothing is happening when something clearly is. If you have felt this connection in your body, in your intuition, in the way your energy responds to them, then this is not imagination. It is recognition. This reading didn't create that recognition. It confirmed it. Someone very special in your life is in love with you. Not in a fantasy-driven way, not in a fleeting way, in a grounded, intentional, quietly brave way. They are not hoping for perfection. They are hoping for a chance. They are waiting for an opportunity to be completely vulnerable with you. A moment to forge a bond based on absolute emotional truth. They want to stop guarding their heart and finally experience the relief of being actively chosen by you, rather than just secretly admired. If you listen to your intuition, you already know exactly who I am talking about. You have sensed it in the heavy silences, in the way their eyes linger, and in that undeniable magnetic tension that exists between you. You have analyzed it. You have felt it. You have asked yourself if you were just imagining things. You weren't. Process this at your own pace, but do not invalidate what your gut is telling you. A love that remains patient in the background usually does so because it understands the profound value of the connection. If this message aligned with where you are right now, claim it by commenting "Ready" below. If you have a face in mind, or if you are seeking that emotional breakthrough, hit the like button to show that this message matters. Make sure to subscribe to Psych Lens and ring the bell so you never miss these deep dives into male psychology and the reality of human connection. Finally, send this to a friend who needs the courage to trust her own instincts, because sometimes a single video is the sign that changes everything.